Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. It won't cost you to make a call. And Leanne is producing today. Coming up on the show this morning, an update from that follow-up budget meeting of the County Council last Friday. Beloved pub in Nina closes its doors. Have men lost their masculinity? We'll be speaking to actor Paul Sheehan on that. Deputy Michael Murphy will join us live from Brussels. We'll be hearing from our security consultant and the founder of Seesaw, Joe Leahy, following that dreadful tragedy in County Offaly over the weekend. The orthopaedic surgeon, Stuart Edwards, will join us. So if you have a query for him, will you log it with us, please? We'll be hearing from author Noel Dundon on his new book, From the Ashes. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tipfm.com. We also have a great prize for you from our good friends at Mr. based on Far Street in Cashel and Abbey Street in Kerr. And I'll tell you how you can win that voucher in a little while. But right now, let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers. The Irish Daily Mail, and right across the newspapers today, reference to that tragedy in Eden Derry, and the Mail telling us that Gardaí are investigating a petrol bomb attack that claimed the lives of a child and his grandaunt and injured his grandmother. Double murder inquiry was underway last night as those killed in the incident in County Offaly were named locally as Tig Farrell, who was 4 years of age, and his grandmother, Mary Holt, who was 60. Also, on a much happier note, right across the newspapers, there's coverage of Ryan Tubridy's marriage. Tubbs ties the knot with Claire is the headline on the Irish Daily Mail. The Irish Times, and the lead story on the Times today, the government is expecting pressure from foreign direct investment firms over any move to strengthen liability for senior tech execs. And also on the Irish Times today, home buyers purchasing more expensive properties in Dublin could be blocked from accessing the state's vacant property grant under proposals being considered by the government. The Independent, dominated once again by a photograph of Ryan Tubridy and his wife now indeed, Dr. Cllr Seamie. And they tied the knot in what's described here as an intimate ceremony, attended only by family and close friends, at a romantic castle in the heart of Connemara. And also coverage, of course, of that tragedy in Eden Derry on the front of the Indo. Finally, let's have a look at the Examiner. And the lead story on the Examiner today, a lack of transparency in the home buying process is leaving house hunters suspicious of estate agents and often paying more than 20% over the original asking price. So that's a look at what's making headlines today. If you'd like to make comment on any of that, we'd be glad to hear from you. So that's text WhatsApp 083 311 3311. Now, a follow-up budget council meeting was held in Nina last Friday after the previous meeting was adjourned when councillors could not come to an agreement. Thomas Conway from the Nina Guardian joins me now. Good morning to you, Thomas.
Good morning, Fran.
And good to talk to you today. We finally got budget approval last Friday. Will you just remind us, though, Thomas, about the initial budget meeting that was described as a farce?
Yeah, it was a very tense and quarrelsome affair, Fran. Heated at times, extremely heated. And the reason for that was the council management had proposed a 5% increase in the commercial rate, which is the rate charged on essentially businesses in the country. Now, it came on top of a 5.5% elevation, which was levied the previous year, and that obviously caused unease amongst some of the councillors. So the meeting the previous Friday, as you said there, and as many of the councillors described it, descended into somewhat of a farce. The Fine Gael councillors couldn't come to an agreement. They were very uneasy with the 5% hike. Fianna Fáil had their problems with it too. And the meeting was ultimately adjourned because nobody, or the budget, which is worth up to €275 million, could not be ratified. They could not get sufficient support. So that led us to another meeting last Friday in which the Fianna Fáil councillor, Michael Smith, put forward an amended budget suggesting that he made a tweak, essentially. The early payment incentive would be raised from 6 to 7%. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but it was obviously sufficient to prompt the Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil councillors who had been reluctant to back the budget. It ultimately passed by 24 votes to 14 with 2 absentees, and that means that the budget was ratified. So 275 million. The impasse was overcome, and a 275 million package was ratified last Friday at the civic offices in Nina.
But certainly from my understanding is that at the initial meeting did Councillor Smith not put forward that early payment incentive anyway. So why did it get it across the line last Friday if it didn't in the first case, Thomas?
Well, Councillor Smith described what had been a productive week of meetings. So obviously there were internal meetings amongst the parties and between the parties and between the parties and the council management in the interim week between the 2 sessions. And that obviously allowed the councillors to come to an agreement. But there's no doubt at all it is an extremely contentious. It effectively amounts to a tax rise, but the council will argue that it is justified, and they cite, I suppose, very valid reasons like Tipp's rising population, rising employment numbers, the cost of services. Both Council Chief Executive Sinead Carr and the Head of Finance, Mark Connolly, referred to the high inflation environment that we're currently living in. And while that obviously affects everybody, it affects the council, and it impacts on their ability to deliver services. And the council does deliver an awful lot of services. One Fine Gael councillor I spoke to did stress that. It is not just roads that the county council is responsible for. You look at a vast array of amenities and facilities, swimming pools, graveyards, etc., and all the costs had came up. So they eventually came to an agreement, but the meeting was not without controversy, and a number of councillors made quite impassioned statements. I was most struck by Councillor Seamie Morris of Nina, who is obviously a regular contributor to this programme, and he referenced the fact that his brother's business, the Hibernian Inn, was forced to close due to rising costs just last week. It was a major story in Nina, and I think you're covering it today. He said Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael should hang their heads in shame with the lack of government funding coming to local authorities. So a really passionate and terse and emotive statement from Councillor Morris. And a number of other councillors also objected to the budgetary process and how the whole thing is managed. There were technical difficulties. The line broke down on one occasion. And there seemed to be kind of a lack of communication amongst the council in its entirety. So it was not a good look, really, the 2 meetings for Tipperary County Council, but they've eventually got a budget over the line, and that will allow them to deliver the services they deliver in 2026.
What can you tell us about the annual rate on valuation, or the commercial rate, Thomas? Can you just give us a bit of background on that?
It's quite complex, but the annual rate on valuation, it's essentially a commercial rate. It's a multiplier, and that's used to calculate the levy businesses must pay to the county council. So in Tipperary in 2025, Tip actually had the 5th lowest commercial rate in the country, and this would be part of the argument that council management would have made. The rate, as I said earlier, had already been increased by 5.5% last year. Another 5% elevation obviously proved too much for some companies, or for some councillors. But council management argued that the new rate, which is 0.2232, is still amongst the lowest in the country. And I suppose their argument is valid. Now, ideologically, I guess it is no real surprise that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael had objections to this. They would see themselves as the pro-enterprise parties. They would be quite close to the business community and have strong connections with them. So that obviously caused unease and formed part of their reluctance to support it. Sinn Féin made the case that larger rate holders should contribute more in order to raise revenue. So they were looking at other revenue streams. And, one thing I did get from all the councillors that I spoke to was there was a general acceptance that the council has to raise revenue. Without the county council, we would be deprived of vital goods and services. And it is essential that the money comes from somewhere. The annual rate on valuation, or the commercial rate, is predicted to represent about 15% of annual income for the council in 2026. So it's one of the largest funding streams alongside grants and the local property tax. So it forms a big component of the council's annual income. So you can see, I think both the council here and the county councillors were left in an invidious position. You can see the argument that council management were making. They need money to finance services. You can also see the dilemma that the county councillors were in. So I would have sympathy for both sides, but they needed to come to an agreement on Friday, essentially because of Councillor Smith's amended budget, that got it over the line.
I also understood, Thomas, that the workshops on the run-up to the budget were supposed to iron out any difficulties so that, passing the budget would be a relatively calm and benign affair. That didn't seem to work.
No. I think there were a couple of council workshops in the lead-in to the budget meeting, and obviously they didn't yield the intended outcome. Councillors were very vocal in that first meeting, that first Friday, and even despite the week of what Councillor Hill described as productive discussions, there were still a number of objections on Friday last, and 14 councillors voted against the proposal. Now, a lot of that, in fairness, was due to concerns around the process and concerns that they didn't know what they were being voted on. The Sinn Féin councillor I spoke to in particular, very well briefed, had some very valid concerns, and spoke very respectfully of his fellow councillors and council management, but he had concerns around the process the degree of information that was available. Now, there is, I would say, a draft budget, or the budget which is proposed on the council website. It's a long document that is quite complex, but the details are there. But clearly there was not a sufficient breakdown of that for councillors. And I think in future years there will have to be a more rigorous process of budget workshops in order to avoid that situation that we saw on the previous two Fridays.
And finally, Thomas, the speculation that there will be something around a 5% increase every year for the term of this government, was that discussed? Did that emerge?
Yeah, that was alluded to, and I suppose I reckon councillors will obviously find it very difficult to stomach that. As I said earlier, 5.5% in 2024, another 5% this year. But I mean, you cannot get away from the fact that Tipperary's ARV, Tipperary's commercial rate, is still amongst the lowest in the country. And that is the argument that council management will make. And if it is that low, and it looks somewhat inevitable that it will rise further unless the council can find additional revenue streams. Now there are a myriad of things that were mentioned that I should touch on. The Lonely Planet's Guide for Tourism in Tipperary, the fact that vacancy and dereliction are being tackled. These were all the arguments that the council management put forward, and they were very valid in many respects. But as I said earlier, it left councillors in an invidious position. It left council management in an invidious position. And I think the prospect of further rises are somewhat inevitable in the years to come.
Thomas, great to talk to you, and thank you so much indeed for that. Thanks, Thomas. Good morning to you. That's Thomas Conway there from the Leahy Guardian. What do you think of that? How do you feel about that? 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, hook on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, hook on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, there was a sense of sadness and surprise in Nina last week after news emerged that one of the town's longest established pubs had closed. Nina Councillor Seamie Morris, brother of the proprietor Martin Morris, said the financial pressures facing the High B pub restaurant demonstrates just how difficult the pub trade is. And Councillor Seamie Morris joins me now. Seamie, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran.
Good to talk to you, Seamie. The closure was a shock to most of us because many of us would have viewed the High B as a thriving business, Seamie.
It was a thriving business. To be fair, it was very busy, particularly busy over the last 6 or 7 months. But unfortunately, the money coming in doesn't match the money going out, and I don't think people realise the pressure that the energy crisis put on large businesses, bars and restaurants, any business with huge energy use. I think at one stage the bills went to about €18,000 every 2 months for electricity.
Wow.
So, but you're coming out of COVID, you have financial crises, COVID, works down the town that had, disrupted the gas lines and all the rest of it. You're going from one crisis to another, and every time you have a crisis, it puts pressure on businesses. And I'm told that there's a few pubs in Nina clinging on by their fingernails. I heard someone saying the other day that there was 15 pubs in Kilmarnock before COVID, and after COVID, now we're down to 3. So that's the pressure that's on pubs at the moment. And to be honest with you, it does madden me at times to hear the government saying there's grants out there for bars, and there's all sorts. You can get nothing if you haven't everything paid up, if you haven't your tax paid up, your rates paid up. You have to be fully compliant with everything. And believe you me, there's a lot of businesses hanging on. And there's actually worse coming after Christmas where small businesses are going to have to sign up to this new pension scheme where they're going to have to pay pensions of employees.
The auto-enrolment, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually Mairead Tierney from Paddy's and Terry Glass put up a good post there saying, and Maura Boyle put up good posts, and they're saying that they're hanging on by their fingernails. And the fact then that the VAT decrease is not coming into next July, they're saying it might never come in.
Yeah, this follows a conversation that a couple of conversations we had on the programme recently, Seamie, where the perception is that of all the towns in Tipperary, Nina is flying.
Footfall wasn't a problem, Fran. It's the cost of doing business. I mean, there was 25 staff in the High B.
Yeah.
If a factory closed with 25 staff, there'd be ministers standing outside calling for task force and all the rest of it. We have a serious crisis coming in bar and restaurant businesses. They're clinging on by their fingernails, and it's the High B today. It'll be another place tomorrow, unfortunately. But I have to say the budget meeting was pretty raw for me the other day. Now I have to say that, and to be honest with you, I'm sitting in the post office van as I am now, trying to do the budget meeting online, and I got infuriated with the whole process, with the lack of respect that they had really for business people.
And when you say they, who are you talking about specifically?
I'm talking about council executive and Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Look, let's be honest. Jim Ryan said he's been through 41 budgets, and I say I've been through something similar since 2004 between Town Council, North Tipperary County Council, and Tipperary County Council. I say I've been through 41 budgets. I'd say I've voted for over 35 of them, Fran. So I'm not someone that votes against budgets for the sake of it. What happened last Friday and last Friday week was an affront to democracy. A lot of us were trying to do it online, on Zoom. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, who obviously control the council, had decided that they try and gazump each other in trying to cover over for the fact that they're raising rates by 5%. They didn't agree with each other, but what happened was they just proceeded to put in an amendment, but nobody online saw the amendment. So what happened then was, while Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael were arguing with each other, and they're saying that we had hours and hours of meetings workshops beforehand. They decided on the day not to agree with each other. I know that for a fact that at least 4 of the Fine Gael councillors said that they weren't agreeing with it. In fact, 2 of them weren't at the meeting the other day, amazingly. So they decided then to suspend standing orders, and you're only supposed to suspend it for 15 minutes or whatever. They were gone for at least a half an hour. None of the rest of us knew what was going on. That was bad, but what happened last Friday was an absolute disgrace. First of all, the meeting started. Most of us had made time to do the meeting while trying to work as well. The meeting started about an hour late, an hour later than it was due to start. And then we had...
That wasn't their fault, though. Something ran over in time, didn't it?
There was a meeting with the Gardaí. But, Fran, you don't put another meeting with a budget meeting. You don't. I mean, if they had any respect for the budget at all and the ratepayers at all, they shouldn't have had the 2 meetings together. Okay, the second thing that had happened was there was an amendment put to us on the day, but none of us had seen the amendment. Despite the amendment having been agreed probably over the week, the amendment wasn't put up. We were asked to vote on something, and the amendment was only then put up online on screen.
Is this Councillor Michael Smith's amendment? Is that what you're referring?
Amendment, yeah.
Yeah.
This is an amendment that they supposedly had agreed to. They never showed it to the rest of us. It was put up on screen just as we were about to vote on it. And what happened next, I think, is totally unprecedented. We were told that if the amendment was voted down, the budget as it was without the amendment was going through without a vote. Now that's when I lost the rag, and I told him I was going legal with it. In fact, I've asked the council to do a full investigation as to where they ran the meeting, because I think the budget meeting this year doesn't stand up to scrutiny, and I think we're going to have another budget meeting.
So are you questioning the legality of the budget then?
100%, Fran. You can't run a budget process like that, like it was run. And let's be honest, Fran, they're talking about raising rates by 5% and more over the next 3 to 4 years. We're being told that we're one of the lowest in the country.
Yes.
But, Fran, I have secured a meeting in the new year about the lack of local government funding. In Ireland, 8% of public spend comes through local government funding to councils. In Europe, the average is 28%. So we're 20% down in funding alone in terms of what's given to local government in Europe. Inflation from roads alone has gone to 35%, and we've got a 12.5% increase in roads. So we're down over 20% there, Fran. So they're talking about cutting services. We're already cutting services. And I've consistently said this. I have 2 ladies in Nina waiting for a front door that they were promised for over 2 years. If that's not cutting services, it's beyond me. And at the same time, Fran, we can spend 780,000 on doing 2 cycleways on the way into Nina, and over 500,000 putting down a new pavement in front of the council offices that nobody looked for either of them, by the way. So there seems to be an attitude that they can spend fluidly when they want to, but when it comes to ordinary people and ratepayers, they have to bear the brunt of it.
Where the High B is concerned, then are you predicting, Seamie, would you go so far as to predict that other businesses are going to follow suit in the town?
I would say every pub in Nina at the moment is for sale, and the well is for sale. There's nobody buying for it, but there's nobody buying, Fran, because nobody wants to buy pubs. I spoke to a publican the other day. Now I will say this, Fran, the amount of support that my brother has got from people ringing me, supporting him. He was a hard worker. He's probably running businesses for over 50 years, Fran, successfully. A pub isn't just somewhere where you serve food. It's somewhere where someone comes in. There was 2 gentlemen. One of them, my 96-year-old father, used to come paddle down there every day, sit in the place, fall asleep. And there was another gentleman who used to come from Leahy with his little transistor radio, turn on the radio behind him. It was a place of comfort for people to drop in and out of. It was a place that organisations around the town and in North Tipperary, got sponsorship. There was fundraisers raised. My own Come Dine At Me fundraiser was there the Friday before it closed. A pub isn't just a place that serves drinks, Fran. Most pubs are the community, particularly in rural Ireland. So if we stand idly by and watch our local communities having their pubs ripped away from them, well then, what's the point in talking about an extra % on a rate rebate when we're closing business up and down the country. Now, I do believe there is some light at the end of the tunnel. It's a difficult tunnel to get through with the High B, and I hope that it works out for them because, as I said, the 25 staff, they were incredibly loyal to the High B and to their customers. Unfortunately, are facing a Christmas without work. Now, there's a number of businesses around the town have already looked for some of them. I hope that they get employment, but when you lose a pub, you lose a community, a very strong community, part of the community.
And when you say light at the end of the tunnel for the High B, can I ask you what you mean by that, Seamie?
Well, look, there may be a way that whatever is out there can be dealt with, and that the business can be revived. I can't say too much more. It's a long shot. It's a long shot, but we would hope that there may be light at the end of the tunnel. That
the doors could reopen again.
It's a difficult tunnel to get through, but hopefully that is the way.
Right, and if that were to be the case, are you talking about the new year, or are you talking about the next few weeks, or?
Fran, when you're dealing with debtors or people that are owed money or whatever, it's a difficult process. Okay, so what I'd say is that we haven't given up hope yet, and come here, it's not my business. It's my brother's business. And Martin, our friend, can I tell you? I saw him during COVID, and I'd say every publican or every business person was like this. A business is like a son or a daughter. They nurture it. They bring it to a place where that it's running well. But I saw my own brother during COVID, and I'm worried about him because when the doors were closed, it devastated him, and I'm absolutely certain that he's devastated now as well. It's very hard for anyone to get up in the morning knowing that the business is under trouble. And Fran, we have business people in Nina, and we're very lucky in Nina that we have very strong entrepreneurial spirit, particularly family businesses that are getting up every morning, turn on the lights. And believe me, the energy crisis nearly closed most of them. Only they stopped paying themselves and they worked their way through it. But it's not just energy costs; it's rates, it's taxes, it's a lot of it then would be the rates that was shelved during COVID. All that has to be paid back for. Everybody thought, Jesus, great. They're all getting money.
Warehoused, I think, was the word they used for
warehouse.
Warehouse,
yeah. That all has to be paid back. And, the pressures of business, you've had conversations with people who are in business all their life, Fran, over the last week or two. In fact, I wrote to the Chamber of Commerce last night. I sent them an email asking them were they happy with the rates because they've said nothing. They were chairlifting Micheál Martin around the Abbey Court there for last Friday week when they should be questioning the lack of local government. But unfortunately, that's what we do in this country. We don't talk to the people who are really responsible, and that's the government, for the lack of local government funding that we're getting in this country.
Can I know you're up to your eyes this morning. Can I get a final word from you, though, because University Hospital Limerick has considerably improved its trolley crisis. That's according to Health Minister Jennifer Karl McNeill. She made the point that those waiting on trolleys now, that number would be double if it were last year. What do you make of that?
Fran, honestly, I mean, Jennifer Karl McNeill, the anatomy of a photograph, as Conor Reedy said. There was politicians inside trying to squeeze them in behind the picture of Jennifer Karl McNeill opening the 96-bed block. Where are they now? When there was over 100 people in trolleys several times in UHL over the last couple of weeks. And the fact is, there was the night that Aoife Johnson died, there was 150 people without a bed. And the place was called chaotic then. It's still chaotic, Fran. And they're saying, Jennifer Karl McNeill saying it has improved. Well, I'd say her children aren't going in there, or her parents or her relations. So at the end of the day, that's what we get from government ministers. They're highly paid. They have spin doctors to tell them, spin doctors like Ivan Yates to tell them, say the opposite of what the truth is, and people will believe you.
All right, Seamie, thanks for your time this morning. Thank you. Good morning to you. This is Councillor Seamie Morris speaking to us there. 1800 938 007. Text WhatsApp 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp Today on 1-800-938-007.
Now, Listen says Seamie Morris is 100% right. The cycleway is a pure waste of money, especially out the Dublin Road. More in their line to tar rural roads near Killeen and line the car parks in Nina, says Jamie to us today. Somebody else saying 35 million for 4 kilometres of road. Another listener on to say the government should be looking after Ireland and its businesses and not giving 125 million to Ukraine to fight a war that will not be won. The government don't care about small businesses in this country. 083 311 3311. Now, Notes on Being a Man is a new book written by podcaster Professor Scott Galloway. And it's stirred a lot of debate since its release. He argues in the book that men need to return to their biological tenets of protect, provide and procreate. And by abandoning those basic instincts in men, we've created a generation of asexual, asocial men. That'll be joined now by actor and regular contributor to the show, Paulie Sheehan. Good morning to you, Paulie.
Hey, how's it going, Fran? I'm on the move, so apologies to any of your listeners. Hopefully it's not too noisy in the background. But
no problem at all.
To be on as usual.
Yeah, well, we're hearing you fine, so there's no bother. You're across this story and this book. What are you making of those tenets in particular?
So, when it comes to this definition of toxic masculinity, and it seems that in my opinion at least, that the goalposts keep shifting on this. Physical strength, callousness, aggressiveness, all of these things, which I suppose if we were to go back a couple of generations, they were considered essential in terms of what it meant to be a man. Now they're, I would say, largely weaponized by certain circles and being used arguably against men. And I think a lot of men in that sense are feeling disillusioned, don't know how to necessarily behave. I mean, I went through a list. I went through a few sites just seeing, various definitions. In some cases, it's even coming down to saying hello to a member of the opposite sex, which I think...
What? That's frowned upon, Paulie, is it?
Yeah, apparently.
Well, okay.
I mean, I do notice, and I suppose... You could cite this to a number of things, perhaps even post-COVID tension or things like that. But even walking around on the streets, people seem less willing to, interact. I mean, I think we as a nation are famously, at least in the past, we're known for acknowledging each other, even if you didn't know each other. And that even seems to be disappearing. And that there's this kind of underlying tension, especially when I find it even myself, and I can understand for members of the opposite sex, if they're walking home alone late at night or, they're on their own, they feel that a certain fear perhaps, being solo and anybody coming along. And I also feel a certain tension. And listen, I don't feel disenfranchised by it. I feel bad because I don't want to, have either of us feeling like we can't both be walking along safe, acknowledging each other and having respect, which is really what it boils down to at the end of the day for me, because I feel that physical strength, providing protection, all of these things, which I would say the majority of women, if you spoke to them, especially those who are with significant others, married, have families, they expect those qualities in a partner. And so for them to suddenly now be turned on their heads by certain people and used as a weapon against others, I think is wrong.
Yeah, and for fear people might have taken something different from my introduction, this book, it's not Andrew Tate in any way. I mean, it is simply putting forward certain things and putting them up for discussion. So it's not a case of here's some more misogyny, Paulie.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think what he operates with, in terms of you mentioning Andrew Tate, I mean, I can't abide by that at all.
Yeah.
Talking about, catching someone by the throat and telling them what to do, and we're living in the 21st century. There's no need for any of this, and I think it's about for me as well, going back to words and being able to communicate more proficiently and having that equal balance and that equal playing field in that sense. But I also think we have to acknowledge that as much as we perhaps, well, I wouldn't say perhaps, we have the physical advantage in terms of how our bodies are developed, our bone density, everything else. No one can nurture a child and raise a child into an adult like a woman can when she has the right conditions and everything else. So we have to acknowledge that we have strength and weaknesses on both sides and not use them as an argument or as a weapon. I'm not against some of what he's saying, but it's very obvious to me that he has seen an opportunity to cash in on the controversy that surrounds all of this, whether it be,
and you're right, there is an element of that. And then he gets a little bit controversial at times when he says that he tells his sons, when you're in the company of women, you pay for everything, and if you can't, you don't go out. And then he goes on to say, a woman is not going to have sex with a man who splits the bill with her. So no, that's obviously an attempt to grab headlines somewhere along the way.
I might be shooting myself in the foot here, but I think I can attest to the latter being completely wrong.
Okay.
and I also think it's a bit rash to assume that one party, whether it be male or female, are going to fit the bill all the time. I think there's this idea of giving and receiving and exchanging, and I think that's the problem too. A lot of this it comes down to materialism as well, and what people are being fed online and these supposed conditions. I think when you, especially if it's a partner, when you find those common grounds and you decide, okay, well, I'm going to have dinner, well, I'll get dinner on this occasion, no, I'm going to get it this time, and that there's not even asking or this assumption that it's something, it's kindness. It all kind of touches back to that for me again. That it is actually quite simple, but I think we're allowing all of these screaming voices from the outside to make it more difficult for ourselves.
Yeah, and ideology, of course, playing a big part in this as well. My pet peeve, though, is, Paulie, and I mean, you're an actor, so I'd be interested to hear your view on this, is how men are portrayed, particularly where advertising is concerned. I go on about this all the time. The man has to be the idiot. The fool who doesn't know how to use the washing machine, doesn't know how to use the washing powder. He's not good with the baby. He's always portrayed as, now, if you were to switch that.
Yeah.
Now,
well,
I know.
You're going to have people upset at you for saying that right now.
Of course.
How dare he say that? And I think, you're living in quite a narrow-minded viewpoint if you are upset about us saying that, because I think I actually turned down an audition for a commercial last week purely based upon that premise, because I said I'm kind of tired of being asked to, and I understand they see me as a particular type, that's totally fine, and I can mold to that type, but I'm sick and tired of being asked to, be the idiot, as you said, because if we asked a woman to be coquettish all the time, in portrayals of media and everything else, which I think it has happened, but I think it has gotten decidedly better over time.
It has. Now, I have to admit, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, where women were draped over motor cars in bikinis for no obvious reason other than to draw the attention of the male eye to it, that equally was absolutely obnoxious. But we're gone the opposite here now, and I think it's damaging perception of maleness and to be manly and all of that, and
Sorry, yeah, I think I think we need to get back to basics a bit, and I know that's probably what Galloway was saying himself, but I think it's just in terms of our mere association with others, and I think we listen too much now to what is being fed to us. I mean, I went on my feed this morning on my phone just to see, and I'd say there was easily about 8 or 9 articles on toxic masculinity and how do you approach a relationship and set the high ground and be the boss. And I mean, we're getting, as you said in media as well, I think we're getting very tired of the portrayal of what is labelled as the girl boss, you know, where females are being asked to portray something which they're not also. And I know our peers and friends of mine who are female are going, well, this is not realistic. And actually it's an insult to me as a performer to be expected to do that. So it is happening on both sides. And I think it's up to us as people who watch, and I hate to use the word consume this kind of media and content, to actually issue it in favour of something better, and to say, well, we're not stupid and we won't accept this. You know, we'd like something better. But that's a much bigger conversation as well.
Indeed. Paulie, a pleasure as always, and thank you for your time. I know that you're travelling at the moment, so very kind of you to make time for us, and thank you for that. Leanne is with me in studio. Good morning to you, Leanne.
Good morning, Fran.
You were the person behind us doing that item, and what's out there, Leanne? What are you seeing out there where this is concerned?
Gender divides are huge online at the moment from both sides. So at the moment there's a man trending called Cllr. He's huge at the moment amongst young people. He's 19 and his idea is you have to look amazing to be the most masculine man. You have to be kind of like Andrew Tate. You have to be very domineering. You have to look good. You have to walk into a room and have people drawn to you. So he's gone extreme. He's getting extreme body modifications done, injecting himself, even going as far as taking drugs to try and get the perfect bone structure. So that is a huge influence online now at the moment. And obviously after adolescence, that conversation around toxic masculinity, that has continued online in light of the Tate brothers as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, what this guy in his book is saying, though, is probably quite different. And again, I might have misled people in how I introduced this, that it was about toxic masculinity. I don't think it's about that, in fairness to him. I think it's about people just feeling okay with being male.
Yeah, I think it's that idea of going back to basics. And when you look at the extremes that are out there now, there is people coming out online and saying they're afraid to do that. They're afraid to open a door. They're afraid to offer to pay. They're afraid to offer to carry something. They feel like equality has become such a conversation that they're afraid to insult people by just doing what they would have done as basic manners in the past.
If some guy, and then Paulie brought this up, and it's something I'm well aware of myself, the last thing a fella wants to do now is to make a woman feel uncomfortable. And if you're in an area where there's only you and a woman, you'll do everything you can that she doesn't. But then again, you say hello as well. So what? Where do you draw the line there? Do you know what I mean?
That's the issue, and I remember it came out online, and this was a very extreme case, and it was a huge conversation a few months ago where a woman collapsed and needed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and a man who was there jumped in the moment trying to be the hero, saved her, and she sued him afterwards.
Because he gave her mouth to mouth?
Yeah, for touching her without consent. And I remember that sparked a huge outrage online.
Did he save her life?
He saved her life. He brought her back to life. And then she sued him. And the conversation at the time was, in the past, he would have been a hero. He jumped in, he saved the day, he saved a stranger's life. But instead it completely backfired on him. So that's that conversation coming again. I've heard from women online saying some are very insulted if a man doesn't offer to pay for something. Some are hugely insulted if he does. They think, well, I can make my own money, so why are you offering to pay here? So it's one of those conversations that it seems like there's no winning.
And what do you think of that advice that Professor Galloway gave to his sons, that that you have to pay? It's absolutely certain that you have to. He says, I tell my sons, when you're in company with them, you pay for everything. If you can't, you don't go out. Simple as that.
See, I know a lot of people who live by that. A lot of my friends would say, if I invite you somewhere, I pay.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't have the money, I wouldn't have invited you. I would never invite you somewhere and expect you to pay. So kind of the rule I'm seeing online is if the man asks the first date, he should pay. And then down the line, when you're in more of a relationship and you're kind of know each other better, then the conversation comes up of 50-50 or taking turns.
It's interesting. He makes a very interesting point, though, where he cites statistics that women fare much better without men than vice versa. And I know particularly when, couples get older and maybe a husband dies or a wife dies, I think women fare better on their own, funny enough. And that would be my experience.
I saw a debate online recently about this, and it was like single women have lots of hobbies. They have lots of time for their friends. They go out a lot. And when they get into relationships, sometimes they take on a carer role and leave all that aside. Whereas when men get into relationships, they have hobbies and they keep them because they have more time now because they're being looked after so well. So that was that debate, and there's advice out there, there's therapists saying, as a woman, make sure you keep your hobbies, make sure you keep your time, don't become dependent, because that's a huge conversation, is dependency. But yeah, it's that idea that the women end up falling into a role where they're doing the men's washing, they're cooking their dinners, and then the men have even more time for their hobbies.
All right, let's find out what our listeners think of this. If you want to speak to Leanne, it's 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. I think this is going to grow legs. Do you?
I think so, and it brings up the opposite role of women as well in this conversation, because that's going mad online as well with the traditional housewives and the traditional female role. So it's really a two-way.
Do you mean that some women are reverting back to the idea of the traditional
Yeah,
role?
there's a huge platform online of women who've come out and have said, I want to stay at home, I want to home make, I want to look after the house, and I want the man to look after me. So it's going both ways, really.
All right, let's see what people think. Thanks for that, Leanne. News and information's coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to the second hour of Tipp Today. 1800 938 007. It is time for a competition in association with the good friends at Mr. Menswear. They're located on Fire Street in Cashel, Abbey Street in Kerr, and the ideal place if you want to go for a prezi for the person that you love. €50 voucher for grabs. Now, all you have to do is text Mr. to 083 311 3311. But give us your name and your details as well, and we'll have that drawn in about an hour's time. Now, I'd like to be joined from Brussels this morning by Tipperary Fine Gael Deputy Michael Murphy. Good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning, Fran. I hope the connection is okay.
The connection is fine. Sounds great, Michael. Why are you in Brussels at the moment?
Just a meeting of the European People's Party, Fran, in advance of the Irish presidency, which, as you know, takes place from the 1st of July next year. Came out this morning and we'll be heading back this evening. So it's really just a short trip over back in Dáil Éireann for tomorrow morning.
Much talk here over the last few days since President Zelensky's visit about security, and particularly around the presidency, Michael. Did that emerge as a topic?
Well, look, first of all, the meeting hasn't taken place yet, Fran. We're meeting this afternoon. I think the meeting commences at 2 o'clock in the European Parliament. What I can say, just in terms of my experience of trying to get in and out of Leinster House during President Zelensky's visit, I never saw such security. It was unprecedented in terms of restrictions that were placed on us as members, even getting in and out of Leinster House. Yeah, there's been some talk, I think, as you said, around drone activity. In particular, I think that's under investigation. There's very little concrete information in the public domain, but look, I'll await to hear that. But of course, security will be front and foremost come the presidency, which is a great honour, may I say, and I really hope Ireland does grasp the opportunity. 6 months, the second half only comes around every 13 years, and at a crucial time as well, particularly in the context of so many issues at the European level, Fran.
You must be disappointed following yesterday's Sunday Indo poll, Michael. Fine Gael at just 17%, a historic low indeed. Not just a rogue poll either, because the trajectory in recent polls indicate a huge drop in support for the party. That must be disappointing for you.
Yeah, look, we're at 17%. Yeah, the Sunday Independent, let me be honest, didn't make for pleasant reading, Fran. But look, I can just keep my head down, continue to work as hard as I can. I'm 12 months into my role as a newly elected TD for South Tipperary, representing South Tipperary in Dáil Éireann, and it's been a great honour, a great privilege. Look, yeah, sometimes, we're going through a commission for renewal at the moment within the party. That's due to publish its report early next year, but there's no doubt about it. I think a number of factors played into that particular poll. Losing Pascal Donoghue, big blow, no doubt about it. I think reflecting on the budget as well, no income tax cuts for ordinary workers, the whole issue of energy credits as well. Look, a lot for the party to reflect on, but look, we've 4 years left and we need to get it right, Fran.
It is interesting, though, Michael, that 70% of people polled disagreeing with Simon Harris gifting himself the role of finance minister. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I don't have a major issue with that, Fran, and let's give our Taoiseach the opportunity. Look, he hasn't really, he's only settling into the role. He did spend 5 years in finance as a Minister for State, working under Michael Noonan, and what was a very difficult time for this country. So I have every confidence in our Taoiseach to deliver in the role as Minister for Finance, and I would appeal to people to give him the chance, and let's see over the next number of years, particularly as he heads into his first budget in October of next year, budget 2027.
You were long-serving councillor until your elevation to the Dáil, Michael, so I'm sure you're across what's been going on in Tipperary County Council over the last couple of weeks. Final approval of the budget last Friday, but the previous Friday described as an absolute farce what was going on. A lot of blame being apportioned to Fine Gael councillors as well for squabbling among themselves. What did you make of it all?
Look, if you reflect, and one only has to Google, in terms of other budgets that were passed eventually around the country that took place in other local authorities. I know of one local authority, I think it was 15 adjournments. In other local authority, there were 7 adjournments. Budgets are difficult decisions. They're complex decisions around complex issues. Whether it was the right or wrong decision to adjourn the budget, I can't say. I wasn't present in the chamber, but yes, I have. I've been in the chamber for maybe 15 budgets, Fran. I do think the hybrid nature of the budget doesn't help. I do believe that budgets should require a physical presence from all members, because it's very difficult for members that are attending online to properly understand what's actually happening in the chamber. I'm not so sure. Was there a microphone failure as well?
There was a sound issue, yes.
There was a sound issue, but they are difficult decisions. And obviously, as you know, there was a 5% rate increase proposal from the executive. There's a statutory requirement on Tipperary County Council to balance the budget, that the budget must, or that Tipperary County Council, Fran, must present a balanced budget. If costs rise, they must either cut services or raise income. So I think what took place was, yes, the 5% rates increase was adopted by, and not just Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Labour, my understanding, a number of independent councillors as well, but factored into that then is a 7% rebate for all ratepayers up to 30,000 if they pay their rates by June or July. And just for the benefit of your listeners, Fran, 83% of ratepayers here in Tipperary pay under 5,000 euros, 83%. And if you take the average there, say a ratepayer that's paying 2,500 euros, their rates go up by 125 euros, but they can claim a rebate of 175 euros.
Would you insist, if you had the power to do so, on a physical attendance at budget meetings? Do you think it?
I would be in favour. I think it's probably, comes back, come back to the reserved function. It's probably the most important function that a member has. And I just don't think when it comes to a budget, it's just a personal view, that the hybrid option doesn't work well for different reasons. I just think, and particularly because budgets, by their very nature. Adjournments are a regular occurrence, and as I said, not just in Tipperary County Council. So it's very difficult, and I know there are genuine reasons why members can't attend.
Members are working, I suppose, as you know.
Yeah,
Michael,
members are working, but look, it's the one meeting, and I have no issue with hybrid meetings for the rest of the year in terms of all the other statutory meetings. But I just think it's, for the budget, a physical meeting would work better. But that's just a personal view. I haven't discussed it with anybody else, but I think the hybrid version that took place both last Friday and I think was it the previous Friday didn't help matters. It would have worked better, in terms of all councillors from across the political divide, Fran.
Right, and just before I leave this, Michael, and again because of your experience at council level, the idea of the workshops on the run-up to the budget, hopefully ironing out issues that failed in this case, what does it say about that idea of workshops?
Yeah, people have different views. I always found the workshops, I used to always make it my position to attend workshops, particularly in the lead up to budgets. Others and they have to account for themselves, don't attend the workshops and then come to the budget and take a decision. I think with any budget, you have to be well informed. You have to understand the background. You have to understand the context of the budget. It is an opportunity to feed into the budget process, make suggestions, make counter proposals and so on. But I have no issue. I think budgets are a positive, workshops in the context of a budget are a positive, but I think it's really important for members to attend. But as I said, there are many members that don't attend the workshops in the lead up to a budget, and for reasons I don't properly understand.
The withdrawal of the coroner requested post-mortem services at University Hospital Waterford, Michael, a lot of people very concerned about this. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so deeply concerning, Fran, throughout 2024 in total. I think similar numbers again for this year, 700 postmortems carried out in Waterford University Hospital annually. I was only recently talking to James Devitt and Cashel about this. These are not just numbers, these are families and often deaths as a result of, tragic circumstances. So the pathology team in Waterford University Hospital have notified both the Department of Justice and the Department of Health that they're no longer in a position to carry out postmortems next year. I raised it first in September, and I don't think there was a focus in either department in terms of resolving the issue. I raised it again last week directly with the Minister for Justice, and again right now on the 8th of December. This cliff edge is fast approaching, probably less than 22, 23, 24 days away, and there's no alternative in place. Now, I did get a phone call from the Minister for Health's department that they're actively working on a solution, but look, I think it's very, this cliff edge, as I said, families, the importance of a post-mortem, and this impacts the counties of, I think, Tipperary, Carlow, Kilkenny, Wexford and Waterford. Right now, as I speak to you, Fran, nothing in place in terms of carrying out post-mortems from the 1st of January. So I'm appealing to both the Department of Justice and the Department of Health, in these final 20, 30 days to resolve this issue.
But is that part of the issue, Michael, that it's multi-departments and the HSE here?
I think that doesn't help. The Department of Justice have overall responsibility under the Coroners Act, whereas the pathologists that carry out this service do so on contract, but are primarily HSE employed. There is some suggestion that in the short term, locum pathologists will perform the role. But look, I just hope everybody comes to their senses, because as I said, when I talk about 700 postmortems annually, that's 700 families, and as I said, often deaths as a result of, very sad, tragic, different reasons. And what people want to be able to do is bury their loved ones in a timely manner. We don't want delays of days, let alone weeks. We want these postmortems carried out almost immediately so people can have that funeral in that timely manner.
Many shovels turned the sod on the new South Tip Garda station in...
Many shovels.
Well, there was about 5 or 6 of them that I could see.
Finally, Fran.
Finally, indeed, yeah. So what can you tell us then in terms of timescale and the like, Michael?
Yeah, well, first of all, look, and I say finally, and, it's, the Garda it's actually the South Tipperary Garda HQ has been talked about for so many years, so many false dawns. But look, finally the sod was finally turned last week by the Minister for Justice and Minister with responsibility for the OPW. Delighted, by the way, it's a Tipperary contractor. Duggan's based in Templemore. Like, there's boots on the ground as we speak. What we've been told, and what I was told directly by the contractor, that the project will be substantially complete by the end of next year. So that's a real positive, Fran, and that's what I'm really focused on here across South Tipperary is, delivery, like investment. The new St. Anthony's will open now in the first quarter of 2026. I had Minister Peter Burke down last week along with the IDA looking at the lands in Ballingran. Actually, it was a meeting that your own Bronan Unnergan sat in on, and I'm delighted to say that a number of companies are looking at the lands in Ballingran. Really positive to see a new employer coming to Clonmel if that was to take place. Like, I'm currently engaging with the Franciscan Friars in terms of the future of the Friary. I met Dunstores last week, their head of property management, expecting a really positive announcement with regard to their flagship store on O'Connell Street that's been vacant for so long. So many other projects, and actually, Fran, great to see the N24 finally included and real progress now, and hopefully we kickstart the Cllr to Waterford section with consultants being appointed in the first quarter of next year. And look, law and order is another challenge, but I can confirm that there's 2 additional guards starting in Clonmel actually tomorrow that are transferring from other stations into Clonmel. So with me, Fran, it's my head down, my sleeves are rolled up, and looking forward to 2026.
All right, can I just finally ask you about infrastructure, because that's particularly where housing is concerned, that really is the secret. There is an action plan, Michael.
There is an action plan. It's an action plan really to accelerate delivery. Like, we have an unprecedented national development plan. I think it's 275 billion over the next 10 years. But we've got a real problem, I think, particularly with regard to judicial reviews. And it's about getting the balance right between people's right to object, but at the same time, let's be honest, 250 judicial reviews over the last 2 years, Fran. To be very clear, people will still have the opportunity to object at the local level. People will still have the opportunity to appeal any decisions at the local level to An Bord Pleanála. But we just can't have an open-ended checkbook when it comes to judicial reviews. There has to be a limit on the costs, and equally there has to be a public interest kind of step before any judicial review is taken. Like, then we have people objecting to projects in Tipperary from counties, border counties from the west of Ireland, from the southwest of Ireland, that are not directly impacted on those projects but are currently objecting. That's the nature. We have serial objectors, and I think that needs to change, and that's why I do welcome this action plan.
We were promised a department, though, of infrastructure, and that would be very helpful. I mean, why aren't we seeing that come to fruition, Michael?
Yeah, look, that was, and indeed that was in the Fine Gael manifesto. It was something that Fine Gael brought to the programme for government negotiation talks. Unfortunately, it wasn't accepted by all the parties, but I think this is the next best thing. We have a department now within Minister Jack Chambers' department on infrastructure that are leading the way. But I think, look, there is a recognition that projects are taking too long. We have projects like Metrolink in Dublin being held up, the wider Dublin drainage scheme, other projects around the country. And you hit the nail on the head, Fran. These projects are, there's a direct link to transport, to wastewater, to water supply and so on. And we just need to acknowledge that some of these projects are of a critical emergency nature, and we need to be able to build them quicker.
All right, good to talk to you today. Thanks for your time, Michael. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Deputy Michael Murphy live from Brussels this morning. 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
A murder investigation has begun after a young boy and woman were killed in a fire in Edenderry in County Offaly on Saturday evening. 60-year-old Mary Holt And 4-year-old Tig Farrell died in the fire, while a second woman in her 50s is in critical condition, being treated in hospital. The Gardaí believe that the house was deliberately attacked, and in a statement described it as a reckless, callous and murderous attack on a family home. Founder of SEAI, security consultant and regular contributor to us, Joe Leahy, is with me in studio. Good morning to you, Joe.
Good morning, Fran.
This is an unspeakable tragedy, isn't it? This is just...
Oh, yeah, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. Like when you break it down, you see that little chap of 4 years of age, and you have to, so obviously sending his letter to Santa Claus and writing and expecting this, that and the other on his wish list, and then all of a sudden gone. It's unbearable to think about this, Fran.
The Gardaí telling us that this has something to do possibly with drug debt. And this is something you've been talking to us about for a long, long time, Joe.
Yeah, the intimidation that's going on out there, Fran, we'll say on the ground, as people say it, use those terms. It's absolutely frightening, and it's widespread, and it's going on, and young people get into drugs, some slip into drugs, because it's the macho thing to do if you have 4 friends, and, are you going to be the odd one out and not take them and not get involved? You're not. You're going to slip into it, and then they don't know where to stop. And that they can't go home. They feel they can't go home and tell the parents. They feel they can't tell anybody. And all of a sudden, they owe €150 or something similar to that. Small money. And the next thing, I've seen people taking their own lives for it. Horrendous stuff going on. And it's so, so sad. And what people need to do is they need to wake up. We need to wake up and we need to think. The old life that I knew growing up and all that, that's gone. It's gone and gone for good and gone forever. And we're in a new life. We're in a new way of doing things now. And drugs are the name of the game outside there at the minute. More people, there's so many young people on them because it's so ever present in everybody's social activities out there. Not everybody are doing them, don't get me wrong. There's an awful lot of people that aren't. But the misfortunes that are, and then if they get into drug debt, and then all of a sudden then within a few weeks, few days, all of a sudden the intimidation starts. You owe me X amount, and if you don't pay it, then you're in trouble, and then the ante is raised then. And either then you're asked to go to some city to collect a bag to meet Joe in Limerick or Joe in Waterford or somewhere and bring home a bag of stuff. If you're caught, then you're in deeper trouble because the drugs are gone and you're still owed the debt. So now, and then you're not to be trusted because you got caught. And then I suppose that what goes on then is the paranoia goes on then, who trusts who and who doesn't trust who and all this. And you've seen non-stop some incredible punishment if you don't mind, for these drug debts going on around the country. It's sad, and people have got to stop and talk. People have got to trust others, trust your parents, trust the people at home, trust your guardians, trust your sports coach, trust your teacher, trust, somebody in society, a friend, an aunt, an uncle, and go to them and say, listen, I'm after making an F up here out of this thing. I met Joe and I did something wrong and I want to stop this and I want to get out of it. It's the only way it'll be done, otherwise this won't be done.
I know Eden Derry, and I'm sure you do as well. It's not exactly a metropolis, Joe, and that's an important part of this conversation as well. This is in our towns and our villages, and
it is. You see, Fran, what has happened here? You see, this is the reality of this. I've seen this all over these, as you said, these villages. What has happened here, you see, is that the criminals are criminals, but that doesn't mean they're fools. They're not fools. And they're out there and they're trying to get ahead of the posse. And they're constantly targeting little villages throughout Ireland, which Ireland is full of little villages, where there's no cops, no guards, no guard station. They're miles out of the way of guards patrolling them and all that. Local knowledge is gone then because information is gone. That's how guards live. That's how they work on somebody saying, oh, Joe's involved in this and Joe's involved in that. That feed is gone because they don't know the local guard. There is no local guard. And the criminals pick these places. And you'll see places, Fran, villages where there's 3 or 4 of these people and they're literally dealing scot-free because there's nobody there to properly keep an eye on or to police them or to prevent what's going on.
That's very stark, Joe.
I know, Fran, but it's the truth, though.
Yeah, I know.
This is the sad part about the blooming thing.
And that's why we need to have the conversation.
And that's why we need to have the conversation.
So we shouldn't be glossing over this.
No. If we don't tackle this and get out there, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And, I listen to conversations there, about having a clinic and having clean needles and so.
Yeah.
But God almighty, sure, the show's over then we're at that stage.
You're what? You're accepting.
You're
that
accepting.
This is the norm, is that
It's
it?
the norm. You're accepting this. Like, what we have to do is prevent. And we have to stop young people getting involved. And we also have to, people are saying, target the dealers. If there wasn't users, there wouldn't be dealers. It's that simple. So we need to stop people using drugs, and young people need to realise, hold on a minute, like, I'm not taking that crap. I'm not taking that stuff. I'm going doing this, I'm going doing that. I'm going out playing sport, I'm getting involved in something else. I ain't doing that. And there's an awful amount of fantastic, good young people out there. I meet them up and down life. They're phenomenal young people, what they do and what they get involved in. They're phenomenal. But it's the misfortunes that don't and that get involved, or that their parents get involved. Like, that young fella 4, he couldn't be involved in a drug deal, for God's sake. But it's the associations or whatever is involved in it. These are the problems. And somebody somewhere has to say stop.
Very interesting, Joe, because when that video went viral about the 2 users in town and one helping another to get injected with whatever the drug was, a lot of people were saying, these are the victims, these are the people, it's not their fault and blah blah blah, and we should be going after the deal. You don't agree with that?
No, it's rubbish, Fran.
That's very interesting now, because
I don't agree with that thought, Fran, because I honestly don't agree with that, because at the end of the day, yes, there's misfortunes. There's people addicted to cigarettes, there's people addicted to alcohol, there's people addicted to gambling. Addiction, there are addictions out there, don't get me wrong. But there's also people out there, Fran, who just wish to do this and continue to do this, and who make no effort whatsoever at all to give it up. None whatsoever. Make no effort to give it up. If you want that kind of a life, then that's your life, that's what you do. I have no sympathy for people like that, Fran. None. I will help anyone that I can in any possible way I can. I'll do anything I can for people. But I wouldn't have any sympathy for people that do that there, Fran, in broad daylight, destroying each other's lives in public.
And do you think the Gardaí have a role in that then, if they see this happening, or if they know of this happening as well? Because this is criminal behaviour. Is that
is criminal behaviour, Fran, and there should be these people that should be arrested. But we're in a peculiar state. I'm not up enough on the law at the minute in relation to making a complaint. We have this system in Ireland, and it needs to be addressed. You know that if you assault me this minute, that I must make the complaint, I must make the statement, and if I don't make the statement, then that needs to be changed. If that's out there visible, if you see visible drug dealing like that, that's out there, then that should be enough to be able to bring people to court. Maybe it is that I don't know enough about it at the minute.
No, I think there has to be actual complaint for it to be acted on.
That's
my understanding.
That needs to change, Fran. If that bit of law doesn't change, like, it's terrible to be able to see this thing going around and everyone watching this and everyone going around verbally saying, gee, Joe, that's terrible. Gee, did you see that? That's terrible. But what's happening? Nothing happening about it. Like, in fairness, because the guards' hands are tied, everyone else's hands are tied, just because a piece of legislation, if it is there now, Fran, my understanding is that a complaint has to be made. That shouldn't have to happen. In this day and age, in 2025, nearly 2026, we should be able to say, hold on, if you see it, take action.
And of course, the story with the jail. I don't have to tell you, but the jails are full.
Yeah.
The prisons are full. So what do you do with these people then, Joe?
Well, it is grand to say, Fran, that things have gone wrong in the past, and they've gone wrong and blame the government for this and that government that. I agree with a lot of it, but the reality is we are where we are. Right, where we are, yes. And we need to do something about it. And if you go down to the courthouse tomorrow here in Clonmel, because there's court on about Tuesday, it will be thronged out the door with people, and it will. So they are being taken to court, they are being this. Then where's the space for them to put into? You go back and you hear this old term, revolving door. What's a revolving door? Sentences are only being half served and all this. But the reality is that there's no prevention for this. There's no fear. There's no. Because I know if I go down tomorrow, sure, what'll I do? I'll come up with some old excuse. It will be adjourned till January or February, and we'll. So if I can get 12 months, it should be grand. I'll be out after 3 months anyway. So where do we fix, as a society, where do we fix this problem? There's grand to be ad lib and say, blame the government, blame the minister, blame the guards, and blame it. That's all fine ad lib old talk. But the reality, where do we solve this problem? The only way we can solve this problem, Fran, is to get people who are using it to stop using the bloody thing. And stop taking the cursed thing, and stop getting involved in drug dealing.
And that merchant key idea, which some people were talking about maybe having in a place like Clonmel, which is some sort of a depot that you'd go to and you get a clean needle and you'd be looked after while you're shooting up in case you OD or something like that. You don't agree with that then, Joe?
No, I think, Fran, if we once we come to that stage where, like Mary
we're
Black
accepting,
sang,
is that
we're
it?
beyond the point of rescue. I think we are. I think yes, is it necessary? We're gone to such a state it possibly is necessary. But at the end of the day, aren't we losing the battle if we're gone that far? Where are we? We're accommodating the issue if we're gone that far.
Right, and their argument would be that, they're saving lives with this because people are ODing in front of them, but at least they can do something about it at that point.
Yeah, but
whereas if it's in a laneway somewhere there...
And I can understand that point and I can see that point, but at the end of the day, Fran, we need to stop it away before it comes to that. We need to stop at the very beginning. We need to stop this. We need to stop young people dealing in drugs, taking drugs, using drugs, abusing drugs. We need to stop that. And it's an easy thing for me to lab out an old sentence like that here on the radio. It's not easy to do, but it has to be done. And the only way it can be done, Fran, is that people out there in society talk to others about it. Talk to somebody about it. Come into people like us in Seesaw. We're totally confidential. Talk to somebody about it. Because if you don't talk to somebody about it, you're going to get deeper and deeper in debt.
And it seems that the nation is shocked by what happened in Edenderry, but I don't think you're shocked, really. This kind of tragedy is inevitable with the way we're going, is that?
It is, Fran, and I suppose, right, I look at my watch, what is it? 22:11. How many people are out there today in Ireland saying, oh my God, who's at the door? Oh my God, who's going to call tonight?
And there are many, aren't there?
There are many. And there are many in every town and every village in the country. This is the problem we have, Fran. It's Edenderry today.
And you've come across them,
yeah,
Joe.
we've come across this, Fran. Now, it's Edenderry last night or Saturday night. Where's it going to be tonight, tomorrow night? Next weekend, where's it going to be? But it will be, because this will happen. And that is the sad, sad part of it.
And much of this we don't see on the front pages of our papers.
Oh, no. It's not fashionable. It's not. You see, all that thing is, even amongst politicians and everybody else, that's all negative. You see, you can't be negative. You must be positive, Fran. And this is where some of the problems is. You have to deal with the reality. And the reality is as we see it. That is the reality.
You're right. We got a lot of criticism about talking down towns.
But all you're doing is telling the truth, Fran.
Yeah.
Now, what do we do? What's the opposite do? Cover it over? Don't mention such a town? Forget about that? No, you'll never deal with an issue like that. Address it. You see the number of people, Fran, that have gone into fabulous places like Ashiree, like Brewery, like Ashling, all these places they've gone into. What's the criteria? They need to win themselves. They need to realise themselves, I have an issue, I want to deal with it. Off they go in, they deal with it. They come out the other side and away they go. Is it easy? It's not easy for them. It's not easy. But they do it. And they attend their meetings regularly and they make their absolute effort to do it. I back them 100%. More luck to them, the very best of luck to them. But there are too many people out there who are dabbling in drugs. Simple old stuff, 50 quid, 100 quid, it's only 100 quid, it's only 150. And the next thing, all of a sudden, the pressure put on, they don't know where to turn to.
And the genie being out of the bottle, I mean, the so-called war on drugs has been going on, particularly in the States, I suppose, since, the 60s and 70s and stuff. We're losing this war, whatever this is. I mean, can you see is there any angle on this that would...
No. What will probably happen, Fran, and it always happens, they'll probably legalise something or other now just to see can they contain the figures of it and all that. That's not the issue. I don't think that should be even considered to legalise anything. The reality is we need to get on top of this. And I honestly believe that if you don't have the users, well, then the sellers can't sell. If we can stop
social deprivation as being the excuse, Joe.
But what is causing social deprivation, Fran? Drugs is causing more social deprivation than anything else. Like if you happen to walk down the street or some street in some town or some city and see a guy coming down and walking down the street in front of you, you can identify him straight away that he's a heroin user by the look of him, by the fact that he's like death warmed up to see. And that is, and whose social deprivation is that? That's the truth, that's what happens.
I had it in Cashel Friday. A guy walked out in front of my car, literally walked out in front of the car, and I could see straight away.
Stoned out of his head.
Straight away the way he was.
Yeah.
So
if you look at that now, society in general, how do we deal with that and cope with that? And roughly, can I ask, what time was that? Roughly?
About 2 o'clock.
In the day?
Yeah, in the day. Absolutely, yeah.
In the day.
Yeah.
So why can't somebody will just say, do a case analysis on that guy and say, where did he come from, what did he do, what did he study, did he go to school, what age he left school at, where did he go? Yes, there'll be misfortunes, we all misfortunes, fall by the wayside. Not everybody is lucky. But at the end of the day, Fran, you have to get off drugs. And if you're on drugs, Fran, you're going to run into trouble, and serious trouble. The intimidation that's going on out there is absolutely frightening. But people need to talk to somebody. You shouldn't be putting up with intimidation.
Right. But this little boy and
oh my God,
his granddad, they're the people who really are suffering.
Oh my God. And you picture like the whole town of Edenderry and surrounds, like Christmas and what should be a celebration, and picture like the plans that were made, maybe possibly to turn on the Christmas lights and to go see Santa Claus and do all that, all gone. Now you're facing into not alone one funeral but two funerals, another person critical in hospital, and hopefully that the Gardaí will be able to solve this problem, and hopefully be able to arrest and successfully prosecute the people that did this. It's terrible.
If people want to talk to you in Seesaw, Joe?
Yes, Fran, we're in Clonmel. Obviously, we're there tonight. We're there now at the moment, Fran, on a coffee morning from 10 until, from 10:30 until 12:30. And we're there tonight from 6:30 to 7:30. And we're in Tipp Town as well this morning from 10:30 to 12:30. And on Thursday evening, then we're in Nina as well from 6:30 to 8:30.
All right, Joe, pleasure. Thanks for coming into us, Joe.
Thanks, Fran.
Thanks very much indeed. We'll take a break.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
Oh, huge reaction to that conversation there with Joe Leahy. 083 311 3311, and we will be getting back to it. But right now, regular contributor and columnist Karl Clancy has finished his 200-hour fast for South Tipperary Hospice, and he joins me now. Karl, good morning to you.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
So you just finished that fast this morning, I think, Karl.
7 o'clock in the midway at the Apple Green.
And have you had a big breakfast since?
I had a bacon and black pudding sandwich on brown bread with loads of butter and a pot of tea.
I'll bet it tasted like nothing else on earth.
It tasted like Christmas, Fran.
I'll bet it did. 200 hours, Karl. Will you tell me about that? I mean, how do you feel after it?
Well, I tell you, yesterday morning I would have eaten the hind leg off the Lamb of God, but I distracted myself over the weekend doing Christmas decorations and cleaning up the house, and yesterday we put up the tree and all that sort of stuff. Just kept the mind occupied. But I have to say, I had to go up the stairs yesterday afternoon, and by the time I got to the top of the stairs, I was physically feeling like my muscles had run a marathon. I was at the end of having energy yesterday afternoon. I really was.
Just for listeners, though, to realise, you didn't do this fast while sitting down somewhere. I mean, you continued about your daily duties, so to speak,
Absolutely.
Karl.
I'm at work at the moment. One breakfast in, but at work at the moment. It's just fasting is, hard enough when you're sitting at home. I think in some ways easier when you're busy and you're active and you have something to be doing. Keeps your mind from thinking about things like jambons and steak dinners and stews.
Did it get at any point where you didn't think about food, for example?
Actually, the more the week went on, I think the more I thought about food.
Right.
The first 3 or 4 days were not too bad, but after that, the body starts to play tricks on you, where you do the automatic things, like you're heading at 10 o'clock in for a break, so you're thinking about the deli counter, but no, you're actually going to buy a bottle of water instead, and that's your break.
Any ideas so far in terms of monies raised for South Tip Hospice, Karl?
Yeah, 900 so far.
Very good.
Hopefully that'll be up over the next day or two. I have a couple of people who've promised faithfully, and I will hunt them down. I'm not proud of that, but I will. I'll hunt them down. So we should get over the €1,000 mark. I have to say that less people probably sponsored this time. I know it's a mixture of time of year, But over the weekend, I also had a lot of time to think about that. And one of the things I was thinking about was the fact that when it came to doing 8 days for hospice, it was harder than doing 4 days for Palestine. And I think that it's easier to give when you think that there might be a positive outcome, maybe, than when you know that it's not going to be a positive outcome. And we're not great at talking about the outcome of hospice and the outcomes of cancer. So I think that people were maybe just a bit shy about investing in the idea, because it's a dark subject. It's a hard one to talk about. It's a hard one to get behind.
It's a very dark subject indeed, because some time ago on the programme, we spent about a week talking about it, and some people got on and said, look, we don't want to hear this. We don't want to confront our mortality or whatever.
Mortality, exactly. Yeah. But you know what? 8 days without food will make you confront your mortality a little bit more, because it is a negative experience on your body.
Yeah, and tell me about that. I mean, did you come to any particular conclusions, or?
Well, I suppose that the easiest conclusion is it's not for everybody. It does take discipline. Not motivation, but the discipline. But also the epiphanies of there's an awful lot I have to be grateful for at the other side of it.
Yeah.
Because at the other side of it, I had breakfast and it tasted good, and I can keep it down. I won't vomit it back up because I'm in chemotherapy. I'm not suffering. I've done a little bit of suffering in order that I lighten somebody else's load, and I'm a little bit proud of that. A little bit proud of the idea that you're helping lighten somebody else's load. And it's something that I think that we maybe other cultures are better at remembering, is that we have a responsibility to take care of each other. We are actually responsible for each other's well-being. And that if we were a little bit more responsible for each other's well-being, we might actually be a nicer society and maybe a bit more giving. But that's just me.
Well, and it's very interesting to listen to that. In terms of the emotional aspect of this and what it does to you, does it bring you down, starvation like that? Is your head kind of, are you more emotional? Do you hark back to maybe issues?
Brad, I found myself harking back to childhood dinners and the memories surrounding them. Steak and kidney pies from Frey Bentos and Campbell's stew in a can. The 1970s food that you would have had. We were all poor back then. Nobody had anything. So it was a case of remembering those things. And that was a bit nostalgic in itself. I think my mood kind of, it did swing. My patience got thinner, but my humour got better as the days went on. Noel, who works with me, has just walked away because he would say the crankiness got an awful lot more prevalent, and your driving went perhaps a little bit askew.
I see.
So,
was there any element, because I believe sometimes in cases of starvation, people starving, there's an element at some point or other along the way of elation.
I was quite giddy now at the weekend, quite definitely. Your body is releasing things to help you cope with the idea that, this may be a journey towards the end. So, let's not make it be all doom and gloom. So, there was definitely a sense of giddiness over the weekend. And I have to say, when I sauntered into the Apple Green this morning and made my way to that deli counter, I was as giddy as a newborn puppy. I was absolutely over the moon at the idea that I was ordering food. So,
isn't that great?
It's done now.
But it's interesting, and I know that I'm certain you've done this, to put yourself in the situation, though, where you're starving, but you don't have the deli to look forward to, and because you're in a situation like maybe people all over the world suffering at the moment with famine and starvation.
At the risk of bringing a conversation down, Fran, any further than I would normally bring it down, I remember that from childhood. where you didn't know what day dinner was arriving. So it's not a new thing. It's new for my adult self, but my memories of sitting in St. Mary's and having no food when other kids around me are eating their lunch, and knowing that there was going to be no food when I got home that evening, it's 45 odd years ago now, but it's still a memory.
Uh-huh.
So I would say, though, that it puts you in mind of how grateful you should damn well be for every time you can step to a deli counter with a $5 in your pocket and get a jambon and a couple of sausage rolls. You know, we're lucky.
Yeah.
We don't know we're lucky, but we are lucky.
Yeah, well, that sounds dreadful as a child that you had to deal with that, doesn't it?
Well, now, Fran, if I were to relay my childhood to people, they would look at me and say, "Have you been reading Angela's Ashes?" Frank McCourt was an optimist.
And there wasn't as much rain.
No. But then again, I had to do an awful lot of my growing up in Kilkenny, and sure, that's a trial by itself.
Sure, I'll say nothing for fear of offending even more people than usual. You look, many congratulations to you. If people want to donate, they can still do so, I guess, Karl.
They can donate now. I'm going to cut it off kind of at the end of this week, because I would actually like the money to get to hospice in short order. So it'll be open for about another week at idonate.ie/fundraiser/200 hours for hospice.
All right. Well, great to chat to you as always, and well done, Karl.
Fran, thank you so much for everything that you've done in helping me publicise it. I really do appreciate it.
Always delighted to have you on the programme. Thanks, Karl. Thank you, and bye-bye to you. That's Karl Clancy there. 083 311 3311. News and information's coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the final hour of Tipp Today. A listener says we need to get away from turning a blind eye to the recreational drug taking at weekends. This is just as bad as all of the other drug taking. While we keep ignoring it, the trouble and antisocial behaviour will increase, says Martin Brown to us. That's Martin in Cashel, former Sinn Féin TD. Joe was in Thurles. He said we need to build a super prison similar to Venezuela and strip all prisoners of all rights. Make a prison a place where you don't want to be. All of these problems can be traced back to left ideology, says Joe to us today. Mary is very unhappy with Joe Leahy, who spoke to us earlier on. She said, tell that man talking about drugs that he needs to educate himself on drug addiction. He's talking to his backside and he has all of the solutions. I would say, well, he's a friend of mine, so you have to take that into account, Mary, but I would say that he's a guy with an awful lot of experience. And, you know, you might disagree profoundly with what he's saying, but it's always worth listening to and through Seesaw. I mean, he's seeing on a daily basis what's happening out there. Let us move on. SEAI, the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, Ireland's national energy authority and the public sector body responsible for all retrofitting in the country. Now, last year, they invested over 14 million upgrading 2,200 homes in Tipperary and over 2 million in helping Tipperary businesses reduce their energy bills. Brian McIntyre is Programme Manager on the National Retrofit team even of SEAI and joins me now. Good morning to you, Brian.
Morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Good to talk to you today. You say that whether you want to improve one area or completely upgrade your home, there's grant options available, Brian.
Exactly, yes. So we have three main grant routes to come into SEAI. So there's the step-by-step option that we have where people can apply for individual grants. Say if you want your attic insulated, or maybe next year you want to do your wall installation. So you can do it in a step-by-step basis and get to the same endpoint as you would do if you went through our one-stop shop program where you're doing a complete home energy upgrade at the one time. And that's where you get, like, you could be getting your walls insulated, your roof insulated, new heating system, windows and doors, solar panels on the roof, all done in the one go. And sometimes we see that with people who buy new houses and they need renovation, they say, well, we might as well do the energy stuff at one time. And then the last one then is our Warmer Home Scheme, and that's to support people at the highest risk of fuel poverty. And that's a fully funded programme that's funded and managed fully by the state, so it comes through SEAI.
You mentioned there the one-stop shop notion. Does that manage everything for you?
Exactly, yeah. So when you contact the one-stop shop, they'll come out and do a home energy assessment and look at your house and see what would need to be done to bring it up to a very high standard. Then they will put in the application for you. They do manage all the works for you. Then they get the post-works, the rating done after that. So they're basically managing everything for you, because it can be really overwhelming for a lot of people. You don't know where to start. And then you're looking at getting different contractors in to do, say, one contractor to your wall insulation, another one to your roof insulation, another one to your windows, another one to your heating system. And that can be an awful lot for people who didn't really know where to start in the first place. So it's to manage that and take people through that and hold their hand right through the process.
Now, if you want to use your own contractor, I guess that's possible, but it must be a registered contractor. Is that it?
Exactly. Yeah, we have a list of registered contractors, both for our individual grants and we have registered one-stop shops as well, that you would go through to carry out your work. So we have hundreds of registered contractors for the individual grants across the entire country, and similarly, our one-stop shops cover, like, mostly are nationally based, but we have 26 one-stop shops, but they'd have a supply chain across most of the country as well underneath them that do all the work.
Now, some of the grants are very substantial, Brian, but do you need to come up with all of the money first and then claim back the grant? Is that the way it works?
For the individual grants, it would be you would contact the contractor, you would get a quote from them, put in your application, and you pay for the work up front, and then you get the grant amount within, say, 4 to 6 weeks. So, for example, a typical detached house would cost somewhere between $2,200 and $2,500 to get the attic installation done, for example, and then within 4 to 6 weeks you get the €1,500 grant into your bank account. With the one-stop shop, because it's a bigger piece of work and it's much more expensive, you're transforming your entire house, making it a much warmer, more comfortable, healthier home. The cost of that is more significant, but you would be drawing down the grants. You'd pay the net amount of grants. So, for example, if the work costs $60,000, for example, to do your entire house, to do absolutely everything, and the grants came to $25,000, you would only ever pay the $35,000. The grant amount is taken off what it costs you, so you never have to pay the full amount up front and then claim it afterwards, because that doesn't incentivise people that don't have that kind of money. So for the individual grants, yeah, you have to pay for it up front, and you get the money back within 4 to 6 weeks. With the one-stop shop, you only pay the net amount. The grant is taken off. You never have to pay more than that net amount.
Right, it still might put people off, though, Brian, to come up with the full amount for something like attic insulation or whatever. Is there any bridging facility there that people could use?
Yes, since last year we have the National Home Energy Upgrade Loan Scheme, and that is exactly for people that are doing this kind of work. And they have very low interest loans, so you could be paying maybe 3 to 4% compared to other typical interest rates could be 7, 8, 9%. And that's for loans between €5,000 and €75,000 that could be paid back over 10 years. So that would be something that people could access to cover that cost.
Now, listeners are already asking about specific grants. Can I start with attic insulation, Brian? What is available there?
So the grants for attic, it ranges based on the type of house it is, because say for detached house you have a bigger area typically to do than you would do for semi-detached and for terrace. So for the grant, it starts at €800 for an apartment. It's up to €1,200 for a mid-terrace, 13 for a semi-detached or end-of-terrace, and €1,500 for a detached house.
And would that be your first port of call? If you only had an opportunity to do one thing in a house, would you start with attic insulation?
I could say, because when you think about it, heat rises. So it's really one of the first things you do when it's cold is you put on a cap as well as your jacket. So we lose about a third of the heat from our house up through our roof. And I could say we're fairly confident saying that the vast majority of people don't have the right level of insulation in the roof. I'd say maybe 60% of the people in the country would be losing twice as much heat through their attic than someone who had it insulated to the current standards. So people look up at their attic, and especially this time of year when we're fetching the Christmas decorations out of the attic, and you see there's that yellow woolly stuff across the floor of the attic, and say, oh, my attic is insulated. But they might have maybe somewhere between 2 and 4 inches of that yellow wool. The standard now would be to have 10 to 12 inches of that, and that reduces a huge amount of the heat loss through the roof. So I definitely say I would be very confident saying the vast majority of people would hugely benefit from getting their attic insulated in the first place.
What about the wall insulation then?
Yeah, I mean, again, the walls you lose about a third of your heat through the walls as well. There's different type of wall insulations that you can get. So, for example, if you've got a cavity wall, which is basically like you have 2 4-inch blocks and a cavity in between it, you can pump insulation into that cavity from the outside. It's done in a few hours, and it fills that cavity with insulation. If you don't have a cavity wall, you're looking at either internal or external insulation, where you're fixing the insulation onto the inside of the wall, inside the house, on the outside of the house, where you're essentially wrapping it, or like putting a tea cozy over the house. They're much bigger jobs. The external wall insulation would be bigger, more expensive job, but it would be probably the best of the wall insulations that you can do. So they'd be the 3 options: the external wall insulation or internal wall insulation. But if you've got a cavity wall, that's relatively cheap and quick to get done.
And the maximum grant there is what?
The grant for cavity wall insulation is €1,700, and the typical cost would be around, again, 2,200, 2,300 for the work. The external wall insulation, like I said, it's a much bigger job, but you're looking probably, the grant for that is about €8,000, and the cost could be between €20,000 and €24,000 to get that done, depending on the size of the house.
What about heat pumps? Because it was a topic of discussion on the programme just a few weeks ago. What's available for that?
The heat pump grant at the minute through the individual grants is €6,500. So that's typically around, depending on what level of work that needs to be done, it can be anywhere between €12,000 or $18,000 to get it done, and then the €6,500 grant comes off that. They would be much more efficient than, say, your typical boiler. So you'd be using about a third of the energy that you would use with a very high efficient boiler, for example. So you're using a lot less energy to heat your house.
The other big discussion on the programme recently would be solar and solar panels and the like. What about that, Brian?
There's a maximum grant of up to €1,800 for solar panels. The interest in solar panels has taken off in the last few years, especially since probably 2022, when they brought in this clean export guarantee. Basically, what you don't use in your house, you send back to the grid and you get paid for that. So it's a much more financial basis. So insulation is great for making your house, you're using less energy in your house, you're making it much warmer, more comfortable, you don't have to get this up and down in temperature in the house. But solar panels are basically, you're reducing how much electricity you're having to import from the grid. So you're getting more free electricity from your roof. So that would pay for itself in anywhere between 5 and 8 years, typically what we're seeing with the energy that you're using. And the financial argument is there because what you're not using in the house, as some people don't, is exported back to the grid, and you get paid for that as well.
Listen, I want to know, is there anything towards the charger at home for an electric car? If somebody wants to buy an electric car, is there anything there?
Yes, there's a charger. It's a €300 grant for the electric charger, or for charging your car at home, yeah.
All right, so there's a lot more detail. Where would people go to get the kind of detail we're talking about now?
Yeah, if you just go to www.seai.ie and you can find details on the grants right at the top of the page. It'll take you straight through to everything you need.
I'm just thinking with the one-stop shop option, which certainly is what I would go for if I could possibly do so at all. If I have an old bungalow from the 80s or whatever like I have, to bring that way up, where could I get that rating up to, do you think?
Well, we're typically seeing across the one-stop shop program, the average rating after the work has been done is up to an A2. So I'd expect that the level of work you're getting done, you're typically looking at wall insulation, roof insulation, probably windows and doors as well, and a new heating system. And the solar panels can be the difference between getting up to an A3 or an A2 or an A1, depending on how much you put on your roof. But you certainly be, from what we're seeing, you're typically getting an A rating at the end of it.
And can you roughly give me what that would cost in its entirety?
The average cost it can range. There's a big proportion of the homes can be done for less than €50,000. The average is somewhere in the mid-60s. For detached house, for example, it's probably the high 50s for a semi-detached house. So it depends on the size of the house. Each individual house is different, but the typical cost we're seeing, say, for a semi-detached house would be $58,000, $59,000 to get everything done. That's not including the grant. The grant will take it down to about maybe $35,000. For a detached house, you're looking, $68,000, $69,000, and the grant would bring it to about $40,000. And it is a lot of money. I'm not going to say it's not, but you're talking about completely transforming your whole house and the comfort and how nice it is to be in your house. And you consider how much time we spend indoors these days. So, but it is a lot of money. It's a complete transformation of your house.
All right, Brian, thanks for your time this morning, and good to talk to you. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Brian McIntyre there, as Programme Manager on the National Retrofit Team, SEAI. Love to hear about your experience of retrofitting. And if you'd like to speak to Leanne, it's a free phone number, 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long-wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back. Paul, I'm not ignoring that wonderful WhatsApp you sent us, and we'd love to talk to you about it in detail, in fact. So I know that Leanne will be in contact with you where that is concerned, but thanks very much indeed for that. So one of our listeners on says, following my conversation with Karl Clancy, Fran, we would have been lost without the help of South Tipperary Hospice. They're walking angels on earth. They guided us for nearly 5 months. Their care and compassion goes way beyond the cause of duty, and you would think the government should fund this charity. Do you know, it always surprises people to find out that hospice is not funded at all, completely dependent on fundraising. And somebody else saying, Fran, Christians have been fasting for millennia here. Well, it's part of many organised religions, the notion of fasting. That chap thought he was helping too, I'll bet, when he took the jabs. Now he has, that's Frank in Thurles going into a different topic that I'm sure we will get to again at some other stage. But right now, I'm glad to be joined by orthopaedic consultant at Odd Even in Kilkenny, Mr. Stuart Edwards. Good morning to you, Stuart.
Morning, Fran.
And good to talk to you today. Lots of questions in for you, and some left over from last time round as well. Somebody wondering about the best treatment options for chronic ACL injuries that haven't healed with therapy. ACL injuries?
Yeah, the ACL is your anterior cruciate ligament. It's one of the ligaments in the knee. There's two of them, and they cross over. That's why they're called cruciate ligaments, and they provide stability to your knee that stops your tibia moving forward on your femur, so your leg bone on your thigh bone. It's a very common sports injury. It's normally a soccer, GAA or rugby injury where your foot is stuck in the ground and it twists and you sustain a rotational injury to the knee. If it's a chronic ACL injury and it's in a patient who doesn't play sports anymore, there's no absolute requirement for reconstruction. It's only if their knee is giving way on a constant basis would you then consider it. And sometimes it's associated with arthritis in the knee, and when arthritis develops in the knee, you may not proceed with an ACL reconstruction because you're there to allow for stability and try and prevent the arthritis developing in the years ahead. So physiotherapy is the mainstay of treatment, and then considering ACL reconstruction with a surgeon.
And is there chronic pain from that? If you're not playing your sport, if it's post your sporting career, is there chronic pain from that, Stuart?
Not from a chronic ACL injury per se, but if they've developed degenerative changes in the knee or arthritis in the knee, then you could develop pain. The most common symptom is instability.
Interesting. All right. Another listener wondering, how can I manage knee osteoarthritis to delay the need for knee replacement surgery?
Yeah. So conservative treatment is normally the mainstay of treatment is weight loss, really helps the knee. We know that 6 to 8 times your body weight and force goes across the knee joint on a deep squat. So 1 pound in weight loss is half a stone off the knee in force. So weight loss is a real big thing. Strengthening your hamstrings and your quadriceps muscles improves like the suspension system for the knee. So that's very good. Some over-the-counter analgesia, painkillers, icing and heat and a walking aid. Those are the basic ways to try and prevent moving on to surgery for knee arthritis. The next day would be to try injection therapy with a special gel that goes in the knee with a cortisone, and that can keep patients going for many years sometimes, actually, especially if it's mild or moderate wear and tear. But if it's severe arthritis and you're in agony and you can't cope with it anymore, then a knee replacement normally is the mainstay for treatment.
Somebody else wondering, what are the signs that my meniscus tear requires surgical intervention? Have I the right pronunciation of that? Meniscus?
Yeah, brilliant. That was perfect, Fran. Yeah. So your meniscus in your knee is like a shock absorber. You can call it cartilage, but when you call it cartilage, there's different types of cartilage in the knee. So we try to call it the meniscus to differentiate between the two. So it's a shock absorber in the knee. It's a C-shaped cartilage in the knee that aids in stability and aids in joint loading. So it's there to prevent you sort of developing degenerative changes in the years ahead. The normal symptom for an unstable meniscal tear is called locking to the knee, and locking is whereby your knee suddenly sticks in flexion and you can't extend the knee, so it locks, and you have to bend the knee and wiggle it to get the knee out straight. So that's the most common indication to have surgery on a meniscal tear. And surgery can be to repair the meniscus, but if it's an old tear or it's in an area of the cartilage or the meniscus that's got no blood supply, then sometimes you have to partially resect it. But locking is the most common symptom, or pain at the back of the knee when you do a deep squat, or when you fully extend your knee out, you get pain on the inside or outside back part of the knee.
So many questions. And how effective, a lot of people in pain out there, obviously, Stuart.
Yeah, absolutely.
How effective are minimally invasive procedures like knee arthroscopy for repetitive knee pain? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Knee arthroscopy is keyhole surgery to the knee. That's how you'd normally do the meniscal surgery with keyhole surgery. Many years ago, you did open operations, but I haven't seen that done in the last 20 years. So it's all done by minimally invasive or arthroscopic surgery. And it's the mainstay of treatment for knee surgery now for sports injuries and stuff. Its success is very much dependent on the indications for doing the surgery. So if we know now, and it's very, very strong in the literature, that keyhole surgery or arthroscopic surgery for knee arthritis is normally a waste of time. Unfortunately, it's still being done around the world, but the literature says that you shouldn't do it because it doesn't really help. It might give you symptom relief for a few months, but you're not repairing anything. When the cartilage is wearing down on the bone, keyhole surgery can't put it back on again. All you're doing is giving it a wash and a brush up. And that really doesn't work. And there's been lots of studies to show that doesn't work. So keyhole surgery for arthritis, established arthritis, doesn't work. Keyhole surgery for meniscal tears is very effective in young patients that have locking in the knee. And keyhole surgery to assist you do an ACL reconstruction for the ACL ruptures is very good. So they're the mainstay for the treatment with keyhole surgery, how effective it is.
It's very interesting. What are the treatment options for chronic ankle instability? I've had multiple sprains. This is one of our listeners.
Not my absolute area of expertise, but I can answer the question. If you've got chronic instability where the knee is subluxing or dislocating, coming out of joint all the time and twisting and you're falling over, the mainstay for treatment, if you've tried physiotherapy and special wobble board exercises to retrain the muscles and the ligaments and tendons around the ankle, then mainstay of treatment would be to have a ligament reconstruction where you can use a ligament that's not, or a tendon that's not really used in the lower leg, and you can reroute it and you can reconstruct the ligament that's gone. That's why you have the instability. So surgery can be helpful in those rare instances where it's just continually subluxing and giving way.
And just in addition to that, it might seem like a stupid question, but can you do anything about the ankle bone? There's no question of replacement there or anything, is there?
There is, actually, Fran.
Oh, is there?
There are ankle replacements out there. They're not as successful as hip and knee replacements because it's such a small joint with such huge forces across it. They do tend to wear out sooner than a hip or a knee. They're very, very effective in rheumatoid arthritic patients that don't mobilise that much but have a chronic pain in their ankle, and they tend to last longer in those patients. But in a big burly farmer who's got arthritis in his ankle joint who wants to keep on farming, normally one would fuse the joint rather than replace it, because the replacement wouldn't last very long.
It seems to be a day for ankles, because somebody's wondering about severe ankle osteoarthritis as well. Is that?
Yeah. So again, going back to the previous question, severe osteoarthritis in the ankle, you get stiffness, pain. You find it very difficult walking on uneven surfaces, and you find it very difficult ambulating at all when it gets really severe. And the only real main treatment for that is to fuse the ankle. Now, patients sort of get a bit scared when they hear about that, but the reason you have pain is because you've got the arthritic joint rubbing on each other, and that gives the pain. So when you fuse that joint, the pain goes. It's very effective in treating the pain. You still have some degree of movement because the rest of the foot has movement in it, so it's not completely rigid. And patients can function extremely well after having an ankle fusion, though it does take 3 months or so to get over the real initial phase of it.
And just a final one, if you would. My son has persistent hip pain. He's a young adult, and I'm wondering, could he need hip replacement? That seems a bit premature, does it?
Yeah, probably very premature. There are other conditions around the hip that can cause pain. You can have a tear to the labrum, which is the cartilage that surrounds the socket. That can give pain. You can have impingement, where when the femoral head is rotating in the socket, it can catch. So you can, in the right indications, perform hip arthroscopic surgery. Now, people don't really know much about it, but it's been out for many years and decades now. In the right individual, hip arthroscopic surgery in a young patient can be very useful to repair that labral tear, or to resculpture the area of impingement in the femoral head and neck where it's catching. And you need a specialist MRI scan for that, where they inject a dye in the hip and do the MRI. So there are options. We avoid a hip replacement at all costs unless we absolutely have to in a young patient, because they only last 10, 15 years.
Stuart, pleasure, and thanks for your time as always. Thank you, and happy Christmas, by the way, if we're not talking again. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Mr. Stuart Edwards there, orthopaedic consultant at Althaven in Kilkenny. 1800 938 007. Now, that pilot initiative involving issuing tasers to 128 frontline uniformed Gardaí, the scheme will be implemented in Dublin Central, Waterford and Kilkenny. Now, Emily from the Irish Council for Civil Liberties joined us on the show last week, and she expressed concerns, to say the very least, about the development. But former Garda and former GRA rep, in fact, for Tipperary, Tom Finnan, joins me now. Good morning to you, Tom.
Morning, Fran.
Good to talk to you today. Tasers, Tom, is that something you would have advocated back in the day?
Yeah, Fran, the guards on the front line are looking for that for the last 10, 15 years as a matter of their own security when they go to incidents. Nowadays, when you get a call, you don't know what you're going to find. So to have that on your waist, trained properly and used properly, is a great device.
I'm trying to remember back, Emily, when she was talking to me from the Council of Civil Liberties, she thought it would change the face of policing in Ireland, particularly the notion of community policing, even to just see the taser there as part of the uniform. Tom, do you see anything in that?
No, Fran. If it's on the uniform, it's there for use, correct use, and those people shouldn't have any fears. And if it is used, it's used for the proper purposes of protecting the member and the public.
And alongside the body cameras and all of that now, you think these are good moves?
Oh yeah, badly needed, Fran, because when a court case arrives afterwards, there's more evidence there to prosecute and put those people that need to be put away.
Yeah, I'm just, Leanne just put up the notes of what Emily said to me. She said, giving tasers a frontline Gardaí is a step change from the tradition, and it's been done at speed without presenting the evidence which the Minister and Garda Commissioner feels warrants their introduction. But your experience, Tom, would say that, yeah, it does warrant the use of tasers.
Oh, it does, Fran. The amount of members out injury on duty as a result of assaults and not having the correct protective devices that they need to look after themselves in an incident where they're set upon. They need these devices for their own protection of others, and the public in general.
Yeah, she said as well that, between pepper spray and batons and the like, that the Gardaí had enough to combat these issues that you referred to, Tom.
No, friend, there's never enough. You're there in a room at the moment, and your devices are always upgraded. So why not upgrade what guards need? If you need a new microphone, you'll get a new microphone state of the art.
So you think it's the least that the people on the front line deserve?
Oh yeah, for their own protection, friend. Because they're going out doing a day's work, and some of them don't come home. They go to a hospital, or they might be in a bed waiting for surgery.
One of the reasons that might stop people making the decision to join the force, do you think that plays into people not joining the force, feeling that they're not protected enough, maybe, Tom?
Of course, Fran, yeah. Without a doubt, because when I joined first, all I had was a baton, a wooden baton. That was in the 90s. But we've gone a long way since then. And these devices are needed, whether it is pepper spray, the taser, they're needed. If they weren't needed, Fran, they wouldn't be brought into operation by Garda management at senior levels.
And now that you're removed, I'd love your view on all that's been said at the moment about Drew Harris and that deal he had on the rent of his home, and the 212,000 cost for the security revamp and the 400,000 for refurbishment and stuff. What do you make of that from your remove, Tom?
Shocking news, Fran. He went for interview in 2017, 2018 for the job. So did other members of Garda Síochána, whether it was Garda members or other outside organisations. Were they informed of free accommodation? These people might have cases to take against the recruitment.
Do you think so? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Like, if you're going for a job, everything should be on the table.
Yeah, they said now, obviously he was coming in from outside of the state, so he didn't have accommodation here, maybe like the new commissioner has.
Fine, if anyone comes into this country and they're looking for a job and they get it, they have to supply their own accommodation, whether it is industry or high tech or whatever. These people have to provide their own accommodation, whether it is buy a house or rent a hotel room for X number of months till they find a suitable location near their job.
And Alan Kelly, who questioned Jim O'Callaghan, the Justice Minister, on this, was making the point that it must be a blow for rank and file Gardaí to, they're struggling on what they're paid, and then they look at this. Was that a fair comment, do you think?
Yeah, that's a valid comment, Fran, because if guards from Tipperary go up to Dublin to do duty in an operation like the next year's European...
the presidency, yes.
European presidency, sorry. Yeah. They're put up in an accommodation, right? And they get nothing but accommodation and meals for their duration.
So it's basic stuff.
Basic stuff, Fran. Like the commissioner, the biggest thing I see with the commissioner and his accommodation and the upgrade of security, he had security on the ground with members of the ERU. So what was the need for the 250-odd thousand to upgrade the accommodation? Because whoever replaced him, and now it's Justin Kelly, and he lives up around Dublin, is he getting the same in his house?
We don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's a question that should be asked and answered by the Minister for Justice. Because...
but I'm sure you wouldn't disagree with proper security measures around a Garda commissioner who could, I suppose, be a target.
No, Fran, I wouldn't. I wouldn't give out about it, Fran. But all I'm saying to you is, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah.
Like Justin Kelly should get the same to his house for his family. Joe Harris came down to an OPW house within the confines of the Phoenix Park.
Yeah.
There was 250,000 of an outlay on security, and another X amount for each year. So all I'd say is, this is a sweetheart deal, in my view, and it shouldn't have been done because he was coming in looking for a job, he was getting well paid, and he should have provided his own accommodation, and then the security would come after that.
All right. Tom, great to talk to you, and a happy Christmas to you and yours, Tom, and thanks for coming on with us. That's former GRA rep for Tipperary, Tom Finnan, speaking to us there. 083 311 3311.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tip Today on 1-800-938-007.
Jimmy Gilman from Clonmore, outside of Templemore, there is the winner of our €50 voucher for Mr. Menswear, and we'll have another €50 voucher for you tomorrow on the programme. Now, from the ashes is the extraordinary tale of how Tipperary rose in 12 months to become All-Ireland Senior Hurling Champions, beating the cream of the hurling crop and defying all of the critics. Now, it really is a remarkable story of resolve and resilience and artistry, and the author is Noel Dundon, who joins me now. Noel, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran. How are things?
I'm very well, Noel, but look, congrats on the book. Even for a non-sporty like me, it's a great read indeed. The genesis to the story, and your chapter is called Genesis, 19th of May 2024. You describe heads bowed, hearts shattered and fans raging at that result. And that was where you're placing the beginning, I suppose, Noel.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the lowest point that we've been at in a long time. It was the games against Cork and Cllr last year at the end of the championship. We had suffered two fairly humiliating defeats, particularly the Cork one, because we got a right height in Semple Stadium, and we probably hit our lowest point at that stage, and it was from there that I suppose the beginning of the revival had to commence somewhere, and it was by hitting rock bottom really that they began to sort of look at themselves, question themselves, and begin to claw their way out of the problem that they were in and the hole that they were in. So when you take that day and you wind the clock forward 12 months or 14 months, I suppose, by the time the All-Ireland was played, it really was a remarkable about turn,
It certainly was indeed, because even the most optimistic of people at that particular point, Noel, might have said, OK, maybe a revival in, 3 or 4 years or something, but within 12 months, as you say yourself, the Phoenix rose.
Yeah, I mean, after the 2024 championship, people were beginning to question whether Tipperary would actually lose that great record we have of winning an All-Ireland in every decade, and so therefore you're looking forward another 6 years before we possibly could have won something and maybe bring through all those minors and under 20 players to win something. But it came right through, I suppose, meticulous planning, really, really hard work in the training field, and on the part of the management team in the way that they decided that they were going to set up. And I think it's important to note that mid-season we probably altered the way that we were setting up in games. in that Rona Maher was no longer being used as a sweeper, but rather as a man marker, a job that he excelled in. He was sent to try and nullify all the big players from the likes of Cllr, Cork, Kilkenny, and he did a great job in that. So that the whole dynamic of the team changed, and I think it's possibly something that the management team don't get enough credit for. We all saw what the plan was for the All Ireland and how that was executed, but the plan had to evolve from the early rounds of the championship through to the game in Cllr, I suppose, really when it began to turn, and so there had been a number of different changes in tactics throughout the season, and the management team deserves enormous credit for identifying that there were problems in the first place, and then for handpicking the people who were going to actually manage those changes, on the field.
I was fascinated by the role of psychology in securing the title, Noel. It was you give examples, for example, of how you can have all the talent and ability in the world, but if the psychology crumbles, a team loses.
Yes, exactly, Fran, and that's, I suppose, something that it's probably a modern day kind of a thing where we have team psychologists and all of that operating in the back room with the management team now. But you go back to years, and the likes of Liam Sheedy would have been his own psychologist, or Babs Keating. They were the guys, Donny Neal, and they were the guys actually talking to the players and giving them the kind of the feel good factor, I suppose, in their own minds. Now that has moved on to the role of the actual team psychologist. But psychology plays a major role in success of teams. And when you look at the margins that are so fine and so narrow between the different teams, or even in Munster alone, like the margins are minuscule, and any little edge at all that you can gain could be the difference between winning and losing. And that's where the psychologists come in, and just making sure that players are in the right frame of mind, that they're not overwhelmed by what's happening to them in training or on the field of play. And like we all have mini computers in our hands and in our pockets these days, Fran, and social media can play a major role in affecting the morale of an individual player, and therefore the team dynamic as well. So psychology is absolutely huge, and it's an area that has grown enormously in recent times. I mean, you would have seen there in the last couple of weeks probably that Limerick have secured the service of Caroline Currid again, which was seen as being a major coup. Now Caroline would have worked in the background with Tipperary, and she also worked with Limerick previously and with Cllr. So for Limerick to be announcing that they had Caroline Currid in the background, well, that will tell you the kind of emphasis that they're putting on having the psychologists that they want in their backroom team.
Of course, but we can trace a lot of that approach back to Eamon O'Shea, I suppose, all those years ago as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Eamon O'Shea was the one that I suppose that we would have seen maybe doing that in a very outward manner. He would actually take players aside in the middle of training and just talk to them while training is going on around them. And I would have witnessed Eamon O'Shea even just literally staring into a player's face to see what they were thinking, and he had that effect. And at times you'd be looking at him and going, this guy is mad, what's he at like, but the players absolutely trusted him implicitly, and they bought into what he was talking about. He would have introduced the whole visualization concept into management of players as well. Now, visualization, I suppose every kid from 4 years up visualises scoring the goal in the All-Ireland or whatever, but psychologists have taken that on to another level, and Cathal Sheridan would have been the man with Tipp this year, and would have gained the trust of the players too, and they speak really, really highly of him. But that visualization, what you do in a particular situation when you catch a ball, high ball, you catch it out of the sky, you land and there's two players facing you, what do you do? And the idea is that you have all of that played out so many times in your mind and in so many occasions on the training field that your reaction just becomes second nature.
It's incredible. You marvel in the book at how the road twisted in the league, Noel.
Yes. Yeah, it did, and I suppose little did we know on the 2 days, the league final day and on the second round of the Munster Championship, little did we realise that we would be meeting Cork in the All-Ireland again a few months later. And I suppose I kind of would have referenced it to in the past, Fran, that Cork have played a central role in the formation of this team. When you go back to the 2024 game that we spoke about initially, and the hiding we took in our own pitch in Semper Stadium. But then we saw in the league against Cork in Semper Stadium, we saw a Tipp team emerging with a victory, which was possibly maybe a little bit of revenge for that hiding in 24. But championship is where it's at. We went down to the Cork in the league final this year. Then got that big beating as well. Went down for the championship to Cork again, and the sending off of Darren McCarthy at the start of the game places a major asterisk on that result. But I think from the matches with Cork, I think the management team realised when it came to the All-Ireland that if we try to approach the All-Ireland in the same fashion or manner as we did those 2 games, well, the result will likely be the same again. And they formed this master plan for the All-Ireland, which was basically to say to Cork, we're not going to let you run at us from half-back or from midfield. And the one occasion that Cork did manage to get a run on us, they got that goal just before half-time. It was the one time that they really got in, I suppose. But the management team had put that plan together, and it was a plan which took a while to take effect, because they had played a number of A versus B games in the preparation for the All-Ireland. And in the first game, the B team hammered the A team. The A team adopting the plan that they were going to adopt in the All-Ireland, and the B team, sacrificing probably their own ambitions to break into the team or whatever, they were asked to play like Cork. They were asked to do exactly what Cork would do to the A team in the All-Ireland, and they did that. And I suppose that in itself, Fran, showed the level of unity that there was in the panel, and that there is in the panel, that those guys were prepared to say, yeah, for the good of the whole thing, we want to win the All-Ireland, we're prepared to do whatever the management team asks us to do. So they gave the A team a right hiding in that first game. And maybe others might have said, abandon that plan straight away, it's not working. But no, the management team persisted with it, and they came back for their next training session, did the same thing, and things were better. The A players had managed to think about it, managed to gain an understanding of what their role was, and by the time they came to the All-Ireland, they had it perfected. Now, there was only a fortnight, remember, between the semi-final and the All-Ireland, so it was a fast-moving plan, but it was perfected by All-Ireland, and we saw the result of it, So, there's enormous credit due to management, enormous, Fran, and also to the entire panel for the way that they bought into it.
But almost immediately after that wonderful victory on the 20th of July, Noel, people were looking to next year and the year after that and the year after that. Yeah. So we get greedy, of course, but I mean, what about that, Noel? What about the longevity of this team?
Yeah, well, look, it's a young team. The profile is young enough, apart from the few elder lemons there, But Noel McGrath, of course, is probably the most experienced player there, and John. And actually, there's a chapter there in the book entitled "The Masters McGrath," and it probably relates to not just their masterful way of playing, but they are masters heading towards the master status as well in terms of age and that. But yeah, in terms of next year and the year after and all that. And a lot has been made of the fact that Tipperary can't do 2 in a row, or haven't managed to do 2 in a row since back in the 60s or whatever. But I think the management team will be looking at the 2026 championship with one goal in mind, and that would be to get out of Munster, because Munster is an absolute minefield. And if you can get out of Munster, well then, the pathway opens up like it did this year. The goal for Tipp this year was to get out of Munster, and when they did that, the game against Leahy emerged. Then Galway were on the horizon in the quarter-final, and little did we know when we were heading down to the Gaelic grounds for that match against Galway that just before the Tipp game, Tipp Galway game, you had Dublin and Limerick in Croke Park, and little did anybody realise that Dublin were going to beat Limerick and take them out of the equation, and that changed the dynamic of the season, So the important thing is get out of Munster. Next year we have Cork in Semper Stadium, and we have Cllr in Semper Stadium. Cllr, the All-Ireland champions last year, they're going to come back smarting over what happened with them this year, and Cork will be smarting over what we did to them in the All-Ireland. So there's no easy game in Munster, and getting out of Munster is the key,
That's for sure. The book is called From the Ashes, and congrats on it, Noel. I presume it's available in all the local bookshops.
It is in local bookshops and supermarkets and all the rest of it, Fran. It's widely available throughout the county. It's published by Red Stripe Books. It's available there now.
All right, congrats to you, Noel, and thanks very much indeed. That's Noel Dundon there, the book From the Ashes, Tipperary's Rise, From Outsiders to All-Ireland Champions. That's it for me. Leanne produced, Ali looks after content. Stephen has a time tunnel on the lunchtime show, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.